Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Again, we're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. And we're turning the topic to the ongoing back and forth regarding the refugees and refugee resettlement. And we bring on our expert here, Katie Kretz. She's the Executive Director of the MCRC, the Multicultural give it to me.
Multicultural Community Resource Center.
Thank you
it's a
very
mouthful.
much.
That's why we rebranded to MCRC.
MCRC, Multicultural Community Resource
Yes,
Center.
sir.
Celebrating 50 years.
Yes.
Started out as the Hispanic group
Yes,
council,
the Hispanic
right?
American Council back in 1975.
Dr. Who was the professor?
There were a number of folks that were the founding fathers, we call them. But I believe
Dr.
it was Soto.
Soto,
Yes.
He used to have a radio show that when he went on vacation, I had to play his tapes. Seriously, yeah.
And I think Eddie Ocasio has that same radio show still today. Yes.
It's much hipper now.
Yes, of course. Anything that has to do with Eddie is pretty
music,
hip.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. A lot of work. And again, whenever you go and visit the MCRC, you get an understanding of the kind of the busyness of the place because it's always educating and facilitating and providing connection and things.
Sure. It's highly complex. So when people tell me to give them my elevator speech, it's not quite simple. There's such a big variety of services that the MCRC provides. But, at the end of the day, we're helping people become self-sufficient in any aspect of their life. And those are people who have come to the United States through legal pathways. And, you and I will talk about that a little bit later in the show, probably about, the amount of education that we've really had to provide this year, specifically related to the immigration talk and what that looks like with MCRC and the services that we provide and the community that we provide it to.
But as far as essential services for any new Americans, let's talk about some of those things because you're teaching language skills, you're teaching workforce skills,
right?
You're navigating some of the cultural differences, within a family structure.
Yes.
The first thing I found out from you guys is the concept of it really is stressful on a family when the kids learn English before the parents or grandparents, and it upsets the power structure of the family.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what happens in a lot of the situations where children are enrolled in American schools. They're, being submersed in the English language, and they are quickly learning the English language because they're required to, whereas a parent or a grandparent, doesn't necessarily it's not required of them in the biggest sense. Those entering the workforce, we do encourage them to, enroll in our ESL classes, either at MCRC or through the number of ESL providers that are in the community. And we've really worked hard as a collective community to really bring the English language to parents in the workforce, and a lot of employers are actually making that part of a work requirement in the workplace where, you have somebody who works on the shop floor, but then during their lunch break, they go to English class.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've really come a long way.
That's amazing that you're able to find these employers that are willing to partner.
Right.
Again, the need for the workforce is so great, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. We have employers coming to us all the time asking, if we have anybody available to work for them. And in most cases, we're able to help. But again, it goes back to that English language barrier and really pushing through that as best we can. And, a lot of the folks who come to us, they don't speak English, but then there are a number of people who are self-taught. A lot of the folks who worked alongside our military in Afghanistan, they learned the English language because they knew that they needed to. So, I have a good friend who worked alongside our military, and he learned the English language by watching American television. So there's all sorts of stories out there of how people are learning the English language, and that's just one of them.
One of the other things that we learn is that many of these folks are professionals in their home country.
Correct.
Yet when they get here, those credentials don't necessarily translate.
That is
you could be
correct.
you could be a judge, and but you can't even be a lawyer in the States.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's another barrier that we're really trying to work as a collective community to help rectify, because there are a lot of qualified people who come over that are highly educated. And their first job coming here to Erie, Pennsylvania is working at Walmart because none of their education has transferred over. We have people who, like you said, are attorneys, they're engineers, they're mechanical engineers, they're chemical engineers. We have a trauma surgeon who sits on our board who is from Afghanistan, and he can't practice medicine here, which, I mean, obviously that's an extreme case there, but there should be pathways rather than having to start completely over to be able to at least get some type of certification and validation of that education.
Yeah, math is, this is what kills me. Math is math. If
Math
you're
is
an
math.
engineer,
Right.
you should be able to be an engineer no matter what the language
absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. So we're working with legislators to try to be able to change some of the legislation to help better support these folks so that they can become self-sufficient and in a way that's more meaningful to them.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine going to school for the length of time it's required to get any type of accreditation in any type of field, and then being forcibly displaced from your home, go to a country that you really didn't ask to come to, but you know that you had to because otherwise you and your family will be dead. And then you're having to start all over again. And it's, people do it with grace and dignity, and we're just here to help them along the way. And I'm here to help advocate and, infuse change as best I can and as best we can as a group.
I think it's important that people understand that those are the stakes that refugees come to.
Right.
Is that if they were to stay in their home country, more than likely they would be deceased.
Absolutely. And most of these families have been displaced a number of times. They've had to move from their home to a place of hiding for a period of time and to another country for a temporary stay. And then once they are granted that legal status here in the United States as a refugee or as a special immigrant, provided a special immigrant visa, which is a separate entity of itself. But once they have these legal pathways to citizenship here in the United States, then they have to start all over again. So they've started over a multitude of times. And then luckily here in Erie, we do have a large refugee community, and we should be grateful that we have these people here because they bring tremendous value to our community.
It makes me think about, 70 years ago, when communism was sweeping through Eastern Europe, and, Hungary falls, right? And there are people escaping Hungary, escaping the Soviet threat, and they end up in the States.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, again, this is, we have connections with those types of stories.
Right.
This is just the modern version of that.
Exactly. It's just happening in a new place, in a new part of the world. And it's not necessarily just now happening there. I mean, if you take a look at the collective mass of population and how much some of these people have been displaced for years and living in refugee camps for years. I know I share a story often that one of our first families that we put together it's called a co-sponsorship group, and it's putting together community members to help support a family that we feel might struggle to be able to adapt well because of their living circumstances prior to coming to the United States. So we had a co-sponsorship group out of Wayside Presbyterian Church, and they have been just a tremendous support to this family. But this family, the husband and wife, actually met in a refugee camp as young children. And they both lived in this refugee camp for 25 years. They had a family. They have 5 children now.
Wow.
And so both them and their children, all they've ever known is a refugee camp, living in a tent with no running water, So coming to the United States and having all of the responsibilities that come along with that was very difficult for them. So we were grateful to have this co-sponsorship group to help them assimilate, and they're both employed. The older son is employed. They're learning the language very well, but it also creates community because now this church has kind of taken this family under their wings, and now they have more people to enjoy their life with, and it's just a beautiful story. And they've been here for almost 2 years now, and they're all still tightly knit and very supportive of each other. So it's been a wonderful thing to see unfold.
Let me ask you about one of the narratives that's out there. We'll start picking at some of these narratives here that refugees and new Americans are taking American jobs away from Americans. You talk to a lot of employers, right?
Yes, we do.
What are the employers telling you about their ability to recruit Erieites, Erie County citizens for these jobs?
Basically, we're their last stop in most cases for reaching out. A lot of these employers just don't find the right people to fill these positions. So, to take a look at the amount of vacant positions here in Erie County that just aren't being filled by people who live here, just is proof within itself that we don't have enough people to fill these jobs. And so, luckily we've been able to really create great relationships with these employers, and we've been able to establish, skill teaching to, and support through case management. A lot of our case managers will go into the workplace with the person, the client, and help teach them the skill set required for the position. And the fact of the matter is that these refugees are very skilled. Once they learn something, they're very skilled and they're dedicated. I mean, the amount of loyalty that they have just because somebody gave them an opportunity and a chance is something that we all probably could take a lesson from. So
the bottom line is that there is no American person that's waiting in that line and gets surpassed by a refugee.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
We're talking to Katie Kretz. We got to take our first break here. 4:18, it's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Let's talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show here. We're talking to Katie Kretz. She is from the Multicultural Community Resource Center, MCRC, and we're talking about the New Americans and the work that the MCRC does with that. Let's cut to the chase here, because significant changes have happened since last fall.
Correct.
And what has kind of made my head scratch is that that quarterly payments for those that had contracts to do refugee resettlement kind of stops. There were stop payment like way before President Trump took office. Like it was almost in anticipation or something happened there.
Right.
What was the first interruption? Because again, you had a contract with the federal government
Correct.
for refugee resettlement.
Yes.
When was the first check that you found missing?
So refugee resettlement is done on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
So as families come in, we basically front the money to help support them, and just for educational purposes, because a lot of people think that there's just this endless supply of money that's given to families for them to become self-sufficient. The families are given a one-time stipend per person of $1,650, and that is like again one-time payment for every member of their household to set up their life here and become self-sufficient. Let that resonate just for a second.
Yeah.
And apply that to your own family and realize that you have to, with that money, have a down payment for a home, a rental home. So usually it's security first and last months. And then you have to continue to support your family in a rental for a period of time. And you have to purchase items for your house. They don't come with things like a bed and a dresser and things like that. So part of our responsibility as an agency is to provide this direct cash assistance. And we don't just hand over the money. We work with them to purchase these items or get donated items for them so that we don't deplete their money as they come into the United States. And then there's an administrative fee that we get to help support these families. But again, it's all done on a reimbursement basis. So when we made our reimbursement to our national resettlement entity, which we're an affiliate of, we stopped receiving payments at about October of last year. And so
that's before the election.
It was. So we haven't really been given a clear explanation as to what even happened, but essentially we continued to provide resettlement through all of this, which, I mean, we are contracted to do. We have the financial wherewithal to do so because, we plan for these things. We typically plan to be able to be about anywhere from 6 months to 10 months operational without being reimbursed. That's just the responsible thing to do. But anything beyond that could be potentially catastrophic to some entities. Luckily, we've been okay. We have other programs to help support our overall mission as an organization, but we stopped receiving reimbursement from October of last year. And then all of a sudden in late January, resettlement just stopped. There was an order stopping resettlement. It was to pause and to be able to kind of regroup and see where resettlement was, with the intention that after a 90-day review period, that potentially resettlement would start up again. That 90-day window has come and gone, and really nothing has changed. Now, luckily, we were able to get our reimbursement, so we have been made whole as an agency.
All the way up to when.
Yes.
So everybody that's in the pipeline here in Erie are covered right now.
Yes.
But now, what if you were stuck in the middle, like you had gotten a green light, but you're still somewhere else?
We had folks ready to travel. We were getting ready to pick up folks from the airport. We had already acquired apartments on their behalf, because that's part of what our responsibility is. We've acquired furniture, people to help, getting all of these apartments ready. And we unfortunately had to go back to landlords and say, I'm sorry, but we don't have anybody to occupy this. And so that, of course, strained relationships. So there's a lot of things that were affected by it, other than just the folks not coming to the United States. But I think that's what we need to talk about more is, people were ready to come. They had been vetted a multitude of times. They've been waiting for years to get here. And I think the most disappointing piece, just from a personal perspective, I'm not talking as the executive director of MCRC, but the families and folks that had worked alongside our military in Afghanistan, they should have been given a priority to come here, and they're still there.
That's been in the works for 20 years.
Right.
All these promises were made.
Yes, so that's extremely heartbreaking as a very proud American citizen, that we would make these promises to people who have endangered their lives and the lives of their families, and we just left them stranded there. But that's, again,
right.
another topic for another day. But the reality of it is it still exists. So there are family members that are here resettled in Erie that still have family back in Afghanistan or wherever they might be at this moment.
Are they in danger from the Taliban?
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. I mean, some families have had to escape to other countries to become safe. But at the end of the day, they're not completely safe. And that's the stuff that kind of keeps me up at night.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Talk about the impact. We'll just stay with Afghanistan here for a second.
Sure.
I get the sense that some refugees come, they get settled, and then maybe they have family out west or out down south. Maybe they don't like the snow, and then they go and they kind of continue their journey. It seems like with the Afghanis, they kind of like Erie, don't they?
They do. And
talk about like how they've been able to prosper.
So there was a group of Afghan members that came to the United States in 2021, and they decided from the get-go that they were going to make Erie home. This is going to be it. And a group of that community came together, established the Afghan Community Center. And they've really, done well with not only welcoming members from their own community, but just being a welcoming community for everybody, for anybody coming in who's resettled. And then the other piece of that too is they're just good people. There was a tornado that happened down in Waterford not too long ago, and members of their community came together and took bottled water and went to help with trying to assist the family however they could. And that's just at the heart of it, who they are. And many of our communities are like that. And I know we talk a lot about the Afghan community, but our Ukrainian communities the same. So many of our communities, they're just really good-hearted people that want to do good things. And so I think that if more of us could see it from that lens, we would be a better community as a whole.
Talking to Katie Kretz, she is from the MCRC. Let's take our bottom of the hour news break, and we'll have more here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, the crucial conversations Erie needs. Appreciate you tuning in to Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show here on a Tuesday edition of our program. We're talking to Katie Kretz. She is the executive director of the Multicultural Community Resource Center, the Mcrc. We're talking about refugees. And again, you do a lot more work beyond the resettlement part of it.
Correct.
Of course, that's what's in the news these days,
Sure.
Katie. But when you think about, just your ability to build community,
Right.
I'm interested in how New Americans and the people of color, minority, how they can be economic engines for Erie. Again, Erie's kind of in this trying to turn this flywheel,
Sure. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Economically.
Absolutely.
Got some cool things happening downtown,
Right.
Some investment on Parade Street, but like really putting some jets to our economy.
Right.
I think that your clients and the people you work with could be a part of that solution.
They absolutely are part of the solution. And that's why we're working so hard to keep the people here that we have resettled, because they're adding value to the economy, not just by filling jobs that need filled, but, paying tax money. I mean, they're paying taxes.
They're starting businesses.
They are. They're starting businesses. And so for us to assume otherwise is very negligent. I mean, we have folks coming into Erie who are eager to build a life. We welcome that. Part of the mayor's plan is to continue to be a welcoming city. And for those who don't know what that means, it's very different than being a sanctuary city. People are always like, Erie's a welcoming city. Yes, we are a certified welcoming city. And that is a certification process that requires certain things to be instituted in the city for families who are not from the United States and come through resettlement to be able to flourish. And so, we're very proud of the fact that we're a certified welcoming city. We've had some, things happen in our community that, have been difficult as far as language access. So, there are certain things that we have to improve overall. But if, the better that we can make their experience here and for them to stay, again, to your point, a lot of the families that we resettle are entrepreneurs, and they do start businesses. And so, for us to be able to continue to build that here is very important. We're working with stakeholders in the community to be able to really help invest in the structure of building refugee support systems in the absence of potential absence of funding going forward. We have the assistance of, the Erie Community Foundation, who launched the Rapid Response Fund, and beyond just helping out with the financial woes that occurred a short time ago, we're looking long-term. And long-term from economic stability standpoint for us, not only to keep our refugee population stable, but also to make them flourish so that it can help contribute to that of the economy here in Erie. There's a lot of variables that add to or that are part of that equation for Erie to be successful, and refugee population is part of that.
Do you get a sense that that the refugee population can be a catalyst to turn these neighborhoods around? Again, we've been talking about blight for many years, right? Nobody wants to live in a thing that's falling down.
Right.
And so when you guys are assisting New Americans, you're looking for stable housing, right?
We are, and we're working.
You have minimums that you have to.
Yes. So specifically MCRC. So we became a resettlement agency. That was like the last thing that we did. We've always served the Latino community, the refugee community, over the course of our 50 years. And it was 2022 that we became a resettlement agency. So this is
recent,
relatively newer for us. But one of the things when I came into MCRC almost 4 years ago was when we decided to do refugee resettlement, there were standards that I wanted us to uphold as an agency, not because it was required of us through a contract, but because it's our obligation to, have safe and affordable housing. And one of the kind of marching orders that I gave to our housing coordinator was, if you won't live there, don't even look at it.
Wow.
And so we've been able to create relationships with landlords where, they're very supportive of our mission. We've been able to work creatively with, how we can structure the monthly rent so that it doesn't deplete all of the funds of our families coming in. So we've been very strategic in not only creating programs that are successful, but creating relationships with landlords to help with the blight. So we've actually had landlords purchase properties and invest in those properties to rehabilitate them specifically for our clientele.
Is that right?
Yes. So we're continuing that. Us as an agency, we're also doing what we need to do to become responsible stakeholders in all of this. I was appointed a couple of years ago to the Housing Advisory Committee for the governor's office. I'm hoping to be reappointed again, but really, be an advocate for the blight in Erie. So we're trying to do what we are capable of doing, not only just working with community members, landlords, but what we can do as an agency as well to continue to contribute to that.
Let's pick your brain about this
Sure.
a second here, because housing is one of our top three issues that we deal with, along with
Sure.
child care and workforce development. And so you guys are doing all that.
All of it.
We need to talk about the other
Right.
two sides. What does Erie need to do for housing? I mean, I'm told that we can't afford to build any new units. Mm-hmm. It's too expensive. It doesn't pencil out, and it just frustrates the tar out of me, because
Sure.
it wasn't that long ago when you could buy a decent house, for high hundreds,
Sure.
under 200,000. Certainly, there's probably some gems in the midst of some crud.
Sure.
At different neighborhoods in the city for 90 or 120 or whatever. But I know that my house is over doubled in value.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, those are real world problems. I mean, the construction costs have skyrocketed. Housing values have inflated. I am not a housing expert by any stretch of the imagination.
But what are you hearing on the street?
It's essentially that. But I think we, again, have to be strategic. And I think, we have a real opportunity with this CRIS money that's being made available, that we have to figure out how to be able to provide these housing solutions in these mixed use concepts and be super creative with that. And so we have some concepts that we've created, and hopefully we'll be able to get those in front of the CRIS board at some point. Mm-hmm. But we want to be part of the solution.
So you plan on proposing a project?
Absolutely. I mean,
let me make sure my listeners understand. CRIS is not able to do pure housing, but they can do mixed use.
Correct.
So you think about the Ascend building across the street. Mm-hmm. It's a climbing gym and it's apartments.
Right.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, we have this money available to us as a city for the next 30 years, right?
Yeah.
We would be silly not to step outside of our comfort zone and look at it from a different perspective. Anybody who knows me is I'm solution oriented. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to come to you with a problem that I don't already have a potential solution for. And we want to be part of the solution in the housing game. So, we're going to have to look at pivoting as an organization, figure out how to make it happen. But at the end of the day, we want safe and affordable housing for our families. Because the healthier they are, the more productive they're going to be, the more that they're going to want to stay. They're going to continue to build their family here. And, 10, 20 years from now, we want to be able to say that we were part of that change.
Yeah. I'll just do a quick editorial comment. In my travels over the weekend, I went to Indiana and back. I literally saw billboards of new housing developments at the $200,000 price point. And I understand that those are really huge developers. They're not looking at Erie, Pennsylvania.
Right.
So either you have to lure somebody that can do things at scale like that,
right.
and maybe you're on a eighth of an acre postage stamp, yet it's still a nice house and it's single family and it would fit our zoning.
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
or you provide incentives for a local builder to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, our campus is on the corner of 10th and Ash. I mean, all of the properties behind us, if they're not condemned, they should be. And
so can you imagine rebooting?
Absolutely. And that's what my vision is. I'm like, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could create little concept, buildings where we had a local market, where we had daycare on the first floor somewhere, and with families living above that. Other cities are doing it. I was in Indianapolis for a bowling tournament for my daughter, and we saw firsthand what these blighted parts of the city were doing, and they were doing the same exact thing. And I'm like, this could so be Erie.
Was the bowling alley called the Brickyard? Just joking. All right, let's go to the other bullet point, which is childcare.
Right.
What are the special circumstances that new Americans deal with childcare? I would imagine new Americans could be part of the solution to the childcare crisis.
They could be, but one of the barriers that we've faced over the years is that in order for somebody coming into the United States to be able to work as a child care worker, and for us as an agency to keep our credentialing as a Star 4 entity.
Because you guys are, that's
the highest
big
designation.
Stuff.
Yeah. So, and
you have
I'm proud
an amazing
to say,
child care facility. Yeah.
I'm proud to say that we were recently awarded a Star 4 this year.
Fantastic.
But in order for us to continue to maintain that, our staff have to have certain credentials. And so, I say ladies because most of our staff are women, but anybody coming into the United States that has education, we have to get that validated. But then if they don't have any type of education specifically related to early childhood education, it just kind of doesn't count. So we encourage our staff to go through the CDA program, and that is a certification through the Council of Professional Development in which they go through training specific to early childhood education, but then they have to take a test. They have to create a portfolio of their classroom. They have to do an observation. All of that's done, but then they have to take their test, and the test is in English. And studies show that tests provided to individuals whose first language is not English, in a setting such as the CDA, typically perform anywhere from 40 to 50% lower than that person that is an English language person that's their first language. So I am excited to say that I have advocated for one of my staff persons, and she has been welcomed into a pilot program that the Council of Professional Development is doing to allow these ladies who don't have English is not their first language to be able to actually take the test in their preferred language so that they can perform better. Because if they don't pass the test, they don't get their CDA. They don't get their CDA, then they can't work in our daycare. So those are the barriers that we face. And again, it's my job to advocate. I advocated, and we're being listened to. So we're having success with that. But we do have a lot of people who are very interested in becoming part of our daycare staff, our child care programming. But it's just very difficult with those type of barriers. So we're trying to break those down as much as we can.
I'm interested. We kind of began the conversation about, culturally, the children learn English quicker and so on. Mm-hmm. So when a family comes over as a refugee family, if let's say that the child is 8, within 4 years, by the time they're 12, 13, 14 years old, 6 years, are they talking like American kids?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, very much so.
So like they have the accent, they have the Erie accent down in the whole bit.
I mean, they may still have their home language accent just because they're submersed in it at home, but certainly their language is just like just like our kids.
So I would imagine though that when that child, that 16, 18-year-old, becomes of age, they're not thinking about kind of working in your space. They're going to
Right.
work in the general market.
Exactly. And that's another area that we're really trying to focus on as an organization is once we have our refugee kids graduating from high school, if they're not necessarily eligible to go to a university because of their citizenship, being able to, provide them skills and work with employers to get them into the workforce. So that's another area that we're going to look at growing this year.
Let's talk about workforce again. Sure. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but you've got willing employers that are even getting to the point where they're having classes on their campus, in their plant, in their offices to teach English classes here.
Yes.
What about the transportation piece? I'm thinking about all those social determinants of health that come to play in all of this.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of varieties that could, potentially be a barrier to these families. We had a plant out in Fairview that was very eager to work with our population, and so we were able to work with them. We worked with EMTA and got a bus to go out there and take folks to and from work. So like I said, I mean, this is not just MCRC. This is an entire community of, people bringing solutions to the table, just so that we can, get people, to where they need to be, because, these families need to have a working wage to help support them. But more importantly, these manufacturers need to be able to continue to do business. I mean, one business that we went to, they had an entire side of their plant shut down because they didn't have enough people. And to see that, like, it hits you hard when you see it in person, and you're like, whoa, there's all of this backlog of work. So, I mean, it has impacts beyond, just creating jobs and stuff. So, I mean, like I said, we're continuing to do what we can to be a part of that solution.
Again, not to muddy the waters, but I want you to make it clear. We're talking about legal vetted immigration.
Correct.
Do you find, though, that some of your constituents are getting into those natural realms of like hospitality, construction, those kinds of things that are talked about at the national level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a majority of the folks that come to Erie are going into those jobs. They're going and working in hotels, cleaning rooms, doing laundry, doing things that maybe they don't necessarily want to do.
Landscapers. Right,
landscapers. Again, I had mentioned Walmart. One of the directors at Catholic Charities, Heba, she's a wonderful human being. She's highly educated. She is an engineer. And her first job when she resettled in Erie was at Walmart. Wow. And she had to deal with it. And she tells that story all the time as, I did not want that job, but I took it because I needed to.
What's she doing now?
She's working at Catholic Charities. And again, she's still, she is... she is not using her skill set. I mean, she should be working for, some type of company to be able to use that skill set. So, when I say that she's highly underemployed, she's highly underemployed. Wow. Yeah. So if anybody listening needs a skilled engineer,
you would think that there'd be a few of them out there.
Right. For sure.
Final thoughts. Again, you guys have celebrated your 50th year at MCRC. How do you think this dilemma with refugee resettlement shakes out? Do you think we're just going to have indefinite pause where basically there will be no refugees for a while?
I consider myself an eternal optimist, so I'm probably not the best person to ask that question to. I can't imagine that we would just not resettle anybody. I would think that we would have to continue to resettle folks. My understanding, and I wasn't in this position during the last administration when Trump was in office, but my understanding was that the numbers were extremely low as far as the total number that was approved by the president for refugee resettlement. I'm assuming that's probably going to happen again at some point. But then again, I mean, nothing surprises me anymore. Right. I would hope that we would continue to resettle people because, I mean, again, like I had said in one of my op-eds, it's one of the most American things that we can do as a country is to help people that have been displaced.
Yeah. We'll leave it there. Katie Kretz, she is the Executive Director, Multicultural Community Resource Center. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today.
I always enjoy our conversations for sure. It is 4:54. Thanks so much. $4:57. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. I love that that it's been 50 years that the MCRC has been celebrating 50 years of serving the Erie multicultural community, founded in 1975, committed to creating pathways for success, belonging, and